The growing calls across the nation to defund the police.
To end policing as we know it.
Off the charts violence in New York City. 11 people shot in just 8 hours on
This is
Sunday.
about the police officers who every single day put on that uniform and they run towards danger when we run away from it.
Guns up, giddy up. Welcome to the Failure to Stop podcast, episode 8. Capitol riots, the insurrection, Capitol craziness. It's all here, folks. And I've got, look, if you're watching the live stream, I've got papers. That means everything that I say is accurate because I've got papers. I look professional. Like you tap, that's what they do, right? Tansey, they tap it on the table.
Yeah.
Set it down and, have the pen that they don't use while they're working. Whatever.
This coffee mug is empty.
Failure to Stop podcast. Welcome to the show, guys. We will not stop. Can't stop, won't stop. We are here to stay like Cuomo. We're not going anywhere. It's not happening, right?
It's a very Cuomo-sexual thing of you to say.
You don't identify as a Cuomo-sexual?
No, I try to treat most women with respect. And I say most because sometimes my wife likes a little disrespect. You know what I mean?
Oh, interesting.
We don't kink shame. We don't kink shame here at Fair to Stop. Period.
Well, you don't have to be Andrew Cuomo to turn me on. It's if Prince was to make a new album, I think that's a change he would make. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I've got that Cuomo feeling.
Wait, what song is that even a parody of?
I don't know.
Come on, help us.
I don't know. To be honest with you, when I was reading the Cuomo sexual harassment allegations, I'm not going to say that I wasn't turned on. I mean, if somebody ran their finger down my neck,
how you doing,
and down the spine of my back on
to
an
your
elevator,
to your gun belt,
I might be guns up, giddy up at that point. You know what I'm saying?
I think that's what Cuomo was hoping for. Hoping. Oh, that's not like a good movie title. The Hoping.
We look at other allegations in the news, and sometimes you're just kind of like, well, the source is not really that believable. And I don't want to say that you can't trust a stripper. I'm not saying you can't trust a hooker. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is that sometimes their morals and their ethics can be tested.
I am saying that for Justice Kavanaugh, one person that he might have met in junior high or whatever, like was holding up an entire nation and, this believe women campaign. And now we're not supposed to believe 11 women. I think it is.
we're not talking about like strippers and like prostitutes and massage handy jayers. We're talking like a state.
We love you trooper. Long time.
A state.
We love you Cuomo. We love you Cuomo time. You want Cuomo special? You want Cuomo? You want the Cuomo? Is that going to get us banned?
I don't know though. Like my friend's gotten a lot of handy jays at massage parlors, and he says like out of all the massage parlors he's got a handy jay at, none of them were not Asian. Friend. Why? Why wouldn't you be?
I don't know. That's weird, man. I don't hang out with. I don't.
I'm not saying he does it now. I'm just saying like
I
when
think you are the average of the five, like the best 5 people you hang around. Like is that
I hang around
your top 5?
Nah,
is your top 5?
Probably not my top 5, and I don't think he's done it.
Is he in your phone as Handy J?
He hasn't done it in probably 10 years, but he used to get Handy J's all the time.
I can stop anytime I want.
And he said they were all Asian. So, and he was not really turned on by Asians per se. So he wanted a more American style Handy J, or maybe Brazilian, I think was the words he used, but he couldn't find any. And I thought it was amusing. He's a comedian actually. So
wow. Well, while this conversation is certainly fascinating, let's talk. We gotta get into this. But I want to welcome the Wolfpack, guys. There's over 300 of you watching live right now, and we're getting like, I don't know, it's a lot of downloads. A lot of people are listening to the show. So just want to say thank you. I mean, like, seriously, guys, this is episode 8. So we're 2 months into this, and the Wolfpack is united. We're
trending.
united.
We're trending on Podbean right now. We're trending on Podbean right now in 8 weeks.
Yeah, brother.
So that's pretty dope.
So we're excited, and quite honestly, both of us recognize that we don't have a show if we don't have people who want to listen to it, So thank you guys. We want to highlight a few of the ratings and reviews that have come in on iTunes. Now, wherever you listen, we appreciate it. Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podbean, whether you watch the live stream every Friday at 11 on my YouTube channel or Facebook, wherever you're consuming this, we appreciate it. But the reality, the water we're swimming in, guys, is that iTunes is king or Apple Podcasts, they call it now. So a rating and review there and a subscription there drives the exposure of the show everywhere. So we really appreciate if you take the time to do that. And 805 of you have so far. And we want to crack 1,000 this weekend. I believe in the Wolfpack. Let's do this. Let's guns up, giddy up the hell out of Apple Podcasts this weekend. Let's rock out and cross 1,000 reviews, and make sure you hit the follow or subscription there. So let's highlight a few of these. Andy, let's see if we can pull it off. K9123 for real says, love it, 5 stars. Eric and Mike are killing it. Love listening to these suckers every Friday on my hour drive home. I was on the job for 9.5 years before I decided to step away. Every episode I can relate to. Will there be 2 episodes a week in the future?
Only time will tell.
Only time will tell.
We do want to do like some crime, some true crime segment style stuff. So we might bring that on a second show.
Yeah, I like it. What do we got next here? Let's see.
You want me to read it?
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I don't want to read this one. I want to read the next one. You read this one.
Love the show. Ryan Aloisio, 5 stars. I love listening to your show. Unfortunately, my career as a police officer was cut short due to health issues. I really appreciate both of your insights into law enforcement. Guns up, giddy up. Back at you, sir.
And last but not least, the funniest one. Have you ever been in the middle of a threesome only to find out it's just you and your bro? Then you realize you're not even having sex and your bro isn't even there, only to turn down the volume on your TV because you can't taste your grilled cheese. Huh? Yeah, that's what this podcast is like, and I'll give it 5 stars.
Thanks,
That
Dollar
is
Store
from
Morpheus.
DHJBG Tongue. I don't even know what that is. But I loved it. That was that made me smile. And listen, man, on iTunes, I read every single one of the reviews on iTunes.
So do I.
Because that's a big deal. If you took the time, if you liked us that much and you went there, shit, dude, it's worth me reading your shit. I wish I could respond to them, but there's no app for that. So
yeah, I know. It's Podbean. You can leave comments, but it's unless we're not logged in there, so it's just a host for us. So like we can't really interact. So, but we appreciate you guys, and that's why we try to highlight it every week. And as a thank you, or because you guys have been asking for it, we've got some huge news today. Bigger than Cuomo.
Breaking
news that'll turn you on more than Cuomo forcefully will. I don't know. Failuretostop.com is now live. So we're looking at it right now on the screen if you're watching with us. So Failure to Stop podcast has a shop now. It has the latest episodes on the website as well. Failuretostop.com. We got some merch that has dropped. I don't know who that dude is, but I'm glad he's wearing our stuff. So yeah, we've got
there it is. Look at that. The only body cam shirt. Go Fund Police shirt.
Go Fund Police. Man. Guns up, giddy up. Of course, we have to have that. We would love to teach critical police theory. So yeah, we've got the critical police theory.
Critical police theory.
And then just some general Failure to Stop merch. I mean, guys, this stuff is so new. We're obviously not even wearing it. We don't have it. It literally, like, we debated, do we drop it now or do we wait till we have this stuff? And we just decided, hey, let's let you guys have at it. If you're interested, it's failuretostop.com. And you should get a little pop-up if you sign up on the site. It gets you 15% off your order. You can use
promo code there is GUGU.
Guns up, giddy up. GUG. 15% off. All right. So that's our own little plug, I guess, being sponsored by ourselves.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug for us, All right. So, man, is that all our housekeeping items?
We did get a couple of mail stuff in. But I will break that down. This week's going to be such a long episode, so I'm going to save all of our fan mail for next week. So anyway,
next week we are going to talk. We'll tell you right now. We are going to be talking about police versus military training and tactics and life and perspective. And to do that, we have confirmed one guest. One special guest. We're working on a second. I'm not going to tell you who the second one is, but we're working on one that is confirmed. Angry Cops. Yes, so he will be joining us live next Friday to talk all things police and military, because you came from military background into policing, and so did Angry Cops. I did not, so I'm sure I'll have a lot of questions to ask you guys to compare and contrast, and we're going to have a good time. It is going to be a good time. Not sure how funny today is.
And I'll tell you, today's show is probably the most emotional research I've ever done. I'm not sure that there was anything that like turned my stomach more than today's show. And
dude, we've got papers, man. We got papers. I was texting you late last night. Like, I know you did a ton of research for this. I did research. Notice I didn't say ton, but both of us did talk to. We did have communication with some Capitol officers. We did have communication with some Metro DC officers. So, and I had communication with people who were actually there for the rally that turned riotous, right? Turned insurrection ? All of that unfolding. Lots of conversations, lots of research, watching the Senate hearing back, going back to President Trump's, or soon to be not President Trump, his speech about the voting results, the election results. Man, just what a massive ball of yarn. What a mess. I think I texted you this a couple times. What a shit show. What a mess. Do you have the same like feeling that I do when you kind of start getting into this? You're like, oh my gosh, there is a lot going on here, and it's just like this big ball of yarn sitting here in front of us.
You're absolutely, I mean, spot on. I know that when we started this, maybe it's like it's been over 10 days, because we were going to do it last week when we realized that it was just going to take too much.
Yeah, we were like,
investigating. And as you investigate it, man, like you go down these rabbit holes. And I don't want to say conspiracy theories, because I'm really careful not to get involved in the conspiracy theories. But like, if you really want to understand government, if you really want to understand politics on this level, on insurrections, I mean, you can go as far back as the 1860s. And then there was an insurrection in the 1920s. And you start looking at all of these things, and it's like, where do you start? Because you see similarities in all of these things. And really, when I sat down last night and to finally go to bed and put this all to rest, I said to myself going into today that the one thing that I take from all of this is one thing that I've said from the beginning of this show. One, perception's never reality. And two, the government is not there for you. So if you are a Republican, or if you're a Democrat and you're coming at this with this mindset of Republican or Democrat, I really, for this show in particular, need you to put that away, because listen, after doing all the research, after just being a part of the government for the last 16 years of my government careers, I will tell you that these guys are not, neither one of them give two fucks about you or give two shits about this country. This is all about getting the rich richer, and mainstream media is owned. We all know this. We're going to get into all these things, but please, for this show, put down your political biases. I don't care if you're left. I don't care if you're right, but you have to look at this as
that's what we have
government
to do,
is
right?
not for you. And the government set this whole thing up. And I'm not saying the right did it, and I'm not saying the left did it either. What I'm saying is government in whole and rich people put this thing together, and we're going to break it down for you. And I think at the end, you'll be like, fuck, dude, this is terrible. and we should probably do something about all of this.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I guess this is a little bit of a Tarantino start to the show, right? We're kind of like giving a little bit of a conclusion in some sense right at the beginning, and then we're going to walk it back through as we kind of tease out these strings of the ball of yarn. But to me, it's exactly that, where yes, you know what? This country is so divided right now, and people are looking at this situation from one angle, and the two sort of like sides that they're assigning are left and right, like red and blue. And I'm telling you, after the conversations that I had this week and my own personal perspective, there's political power and position, and then there's normal people. That's the divide. That's where our country is not united. This whole idea of Fox versus CNN being the reality, that once you start digging into this, you start realizing, yeah, that's not the issue. That's just how it's presented to us. It's presented to keep us apart as people, as citizens of the country. And as the longer they can make us believe that this is a red and blue thing, the longer they're able to maintain those positions of positional power in politics. And so that's the conclusion of this. And we want to be accurate. We want to be respectful as we go through this. And guys, we're going to share with you what we learned in this process. And so we're going to tease out a few different categories to this, and I'll just tell you what they are a little bit ahead of time. We want to talk about literally the actual events of what led up to this, what built up to this situation on January 6th. What should it be called? Is it just a riot? Is it an insurrection? You know, what really happened? Talk a little bit about the tactics and the situation itself. We want to talk about the police involved, why we should be supportive of them, and not assign them to one political persuasion or the other. But we definitely need to talk about the politics of this, the politicians involved, and what the issues are that as we see them, and then just talk about the history a little bit, about the history of insurrections in our country. Does this line up with that? Is this an insurrection in the traditional sense? Is this a new way that we're going to see this kind of happen? Where do we go from here? So a lot to cover. And yeah. Am I missing anything, Tansey?
No, it's just going to be a long show. So buckle up.
Buckle up. Guns up, giddy up. Failure to stop. We can't. We won't. Let's go. So talk to me, Tansey, about I guess where do you feel this all starts? I mean, you have to pick a starting point. We can't go back to a cold winter night in 1774.
No,
but
we can't. But
we have to pick a starting point for this conversation. Do we say it's the election?
No, I also will go back just a little bit further. I think so. Talking to some Capitol Police officers. And this is one of the questions that I asked everybody that we've interviewed. I said, where do you think this started? And I got a different answer from all of them, but I did get two of the same answers from two different police officers that I don't believe know each other. So that's why we'll talk about this. And I think it's interesting that they said that really the mood all changed in the last months of Obama's administration, and that there was a swing in the way things were going on. There was just like this ominous intensity of, they felt that the police themselves were being used as a political pawn from there. The lightings of the lighthouse in different colors, there just became this sway where they could tell that the focus was on them. And then during the Trump administration, sometimes it would sway from them, but it would quickly come back onto them. They also noticed that, and now I want to talk about the history of the Capitol Police briefly here in a minute, but the Capitol Police, one thing you need to know about them is that this is all governed by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They're the ones that are kind of like the head of command of what's called the Sergeant of Arms. So you have the chief of the Capitol Police, and then you have in my notes here, you have the majority leader and the House chamber. They are the ones that the Sergeant of Arms is former Secret Service typically, or some person that has a lot of federal police training and experience under their belt. So the sergeant of arms is the one that takes advice from the chief, deciphers what the chief is saying, and then he pitches that to the majority leader and the chamber, and then they are the ones that make the overwhelming decision. So Pelosi and Schumer have, like, they get to choose who the chief's going to be, they choose who the sergeant of arms is going to be, and they ultimately make security decisions that's going to happen at the White House, at the Capitol building. They're the ones that are going to make the final decisions on all of the things that go on. Okay. So that's what's crazy about this department.
It may never come up in this again in the conversation because I don't know how, I mean, maybe it's relevant. There was somebody that responded during this whole situation at the Capitol riots that earned the respect so greatly of the Capitol police officers that they had a petition to make this guy chief. They nominated, basically the Officers Association got together, created a petition. There's roughly 2,000 Capitol police officers in total.
They're supposed to be. Now they're short, and they're even shorter now. But yes, in theory, and this was passed by Congress, that they were allowed 2,000 officers.
Yeah. So they had over 900 signatures to nominate somebody as chief, saying this is who we want to lead us. And of course, that was not who was chosen. So the leadership of the Capitol Police ends up being, I mean, all police departments can tend to be political, but this is political to the nth degree.
Right.
Now, at the top of the chain here.
Now, we all know that once you get to a certain point in leadership, you become a political piece of shit, and you only care about climbing the political ladder, and you don't care about your men. We all know that. We've said that on the show 100 times. Fuck leadership. I get it. But like, let's talk about street cops who are real cops, right? So what the real Capitol Police officer has a big responsibility. So they have to protect the people first, right? And so a lot of times when you see Secret Service and you see guys in suit and ties, and you're like, oh, look, that's Secret Service. It's not always Secret Service. A lot of times that could be Capitol policemen, right? Because there is roughly about 60 of these Capitol officers that are assigned to the key leadership in Congress. So 482 out of, let's say, like right now, realistically, it's about 1,700 sworn officers. And out of that 1,700 sworn officers, not all of them are uniform officers. So then you take 482 of those officers, and those are assigned to direct protection of your key leadership, which is your people in the House, the Senate, and the Capitol. Okay, so 482 guys are already gone. Then you've got your first responder units, and when so their responsibility is very broad. And when you become a Capitol Police officer, you can be assigned to any division. You don't know where you're going to go to start. So you could go to the House, you could go to the Senate, you could go to the Capitol building, you can be the first responder unit, which patrols all around the blocks of the building. And then you could also go to the Library of Congress and do that there. You don't know if you're going to be a gate guard. You don't know if you're going to be a patrolman, canine unit. You can be anything. So Capitol Police has lots of responsibilities that other police departments do not have to worry about. But what's important to know is that a Capitol Police officer has got to stay unbiased, and they do not talk politics at work or outside of work because they're so attached to politicians and protecting life of these people that if any of them were to get hurt or die, the cops don't want to have any liability on them. It's like, oh, well, he was voting against them and he was actively. So it's going forward. It's really important to know that these Capitol policemen have got to stay hush hush on politics, because for them, it's not about politics. It's about preservation of life. And it doesn't matter whose life that is. And so some of these officers we talked to have been with Obama, Trump, and now Biden. Some of them have been even before that. We're talking 25 plus years of service, some of these guys. And so politics or no politics, these guys only care about the preservation of the life that they're guarding.
Yeah, that's a little breakdown. And I think a lot of people don't know that, right? Like in DC, there's an alphabet soup. In Washington, DC, there's more than 60 law enforcement agencies. So you may have some that literally are assigned. I mean, you're talking like they go through a whole academy, they go the whole thing, and they're like assigned to a building. and the block around the building. That's their jurisdiction. It's very, very strange sort of a situation. But Capitol Police start their training down in FLETC, of the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, down in Glencoe, Georgia. That every federal agency starts there, and then they move them up to Maryland and continue their training. They do like an on-the-job training, and then get their like initial assignment, which for most Capitol Police officers is going to be like a point of entry, that sort of a thing. And then they move into different assignments or tasks from there. And sometimes it's double duty. Sometimes like these guys may have a uniform and a suit in their locker. So when they come to work, they may be told, hey, put your suit on. You're going to be doing this today. Oh, okay. Like, so there's more than meets the eye. I don't think it's fair to, there's memes going around, and I can laugh at memes and stuff like that. You and I you sent me some, and we can get a chuckle out of it. But at the end of the day, like, I don't think that we should be disparaging our brothers that are Capitol Police officers just because that the scope of their responsibilities, their duties involves screening people at a door to get into the Capitol, right? Like that in and of itself. I mean, we have countless scores of deputies around this country doing the exact same thing in courts across the country or whatever else. We don't disparage them. Like I don't think that just because that's one aspect of the job, leave that shit behind, guys. Like I hate to see.
These guys aren't mall cops. These guys aren't like, I know sometimes that, right before you retire as a sheriff, you might go to be a bailiff, or maybe you're so brand new rookie, you're waiting for a position on patrol. And so you have to work the courthouse. These guys are not exactly that. Okay. So when you're working at the White House, there's always this looming sense. And this is what I talk to these guys. It makes the Capitol Police a little bit different, is that there's a sense of, is today the day? Is today the day that somebody tries to kill the president? Is today the day that somebody tries to blow up the Capitol? Is today the day that something is going to happen? And there are days that these guys have feelings like, man, we've got some really weird intel. And now their information is not public because they're not the same as a regular police department where they have to disclose everything that goes on there, right? Because there's a lot of top secret shit. There's a lot of security issues that they have to deal with. So there's a lot of things. There's
300,000 cameras at the Capitol. 300,000 cameras.
And these guys have wild stories that we're not allowed to disclose here, but just to give us examples.
Stuff happens.
Yes.
No one ever knows about.
They shot a guy on an elevator that pulled out a knife and nobody heard about it.
Nobody hears about that.
Nobody hears about that stuff. So these guys have to go to work every day. And I know that we all go to work as law enforcement officers wondering, is today going to be that day? It's no different for them. It's just a little different, right? It's not different, but it is different.
And you can have different assignments, but they've got different trainings and first responder trainings. And, but yeah, they went through an academy just like other cops go through the academy, and they go through training just like every other cop. Let's be real. There's a lot of cops in a lot of jurisdictions that they go 15, 20, 25 years without some type of major critical incident, right? It doesn't make their job less valuable. It doesn't make them less valuable. It doesn't make the circumstance of when shit hits the fan and it impacts them and they share how it impacted them. It doesn't make them less of a cop, less of a man or a human to share that experience. And so I've just seen a lot of people have come at me and be like, how come you don't support your Capitol cops? And I'm like, what they're doing is they're assuming that because I tend to come across as conservative, which in a lot of ways I do hold some conservative values. I'm not a registered anything, but everybody wants to do these categories, and they're doing it to the cops. But these cops have earned their role there and have done and continue to do a great service to their department, and have the same oath that we have as far as uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And I think that's what most of them are there to do.
Andy, can you put that comment back up? That question I caught the tail end of it. What about Scott Becker, not to call you out, I'm just reading your shit here. What about the POS BLM supporters who cried while testifying for Pelosi's Inquisition? Okay, I get it. We're going to talk about that, but that's what we're kind of building up to, because like, if one of my buddies, and this is a true friend of mine, was drinking through a straw for quite some time after getting hit in the face with a brick from a BLM protest, right? So is his story, because maybe you are on the opposite side of BLM, so are you saying that his story is more compelling because he's on your side of the fence, that he got his jaw wired shut, but then this officer who happens to support the other end was then had, you know, fireworks and all these other things thrown at him, or was dragged into a crowd? And we're going to get into their testimonies here in a minute, but that's what our point is that just because you don't believe this guy's political views, it doesn't mean that what happened to him is justified. Just as the BLM guy, my buddy that got his face bashed in by BLM, it doesn't make that his story is more credible because he's on my side of the politics. And that's why we're saying you have to leave the politics out of it, because what happened on that day happened. Like, that's not a conspiracy. There's fucking tons of videos that there was a bunch of shit that went down and cops got hurt. All right. And it doesn't matter what side of the political fence that they were on. It does not justify what happened to them. So,
yeah. And the response, yeah, man, the response of the cops was not along political lines. It's indisputable.
It was
it's
preservation of life.
So, and the reason is that we'll get to what came out on the radio to the Capitol Police at the time of exactly the decision that leadership made and told them what they needed to do. And when you understand their role as the primary role of those officers, you may think it's screening people at a door. Their primary role is the protection and preservation of the lives of those that serve in the building. So,
right. And they get to see all the pieces of shit that come through that door to talk to congressmen. And here's one story I'll tell you really briefly about that I heard is one guy was working the door and this gentleman came through and he had a trench coat on, as normal, as a lot of these guys do wear trench coats in DC. And he had envelopes in every orifice of this coat. And they stopped him and they had him empty out his pockets. And we're like, what are all these envelopes? And they open it because he was going through the x-ray machine, and they open it up and it's $100 bills packed into these envelopes. So thousands of dollars. And so they were like, what are you doing with all this money? And he goes, I'm going to talk to a congressman. And they called their supervisor. Supervisor's like, dude, you have to let him in. Like, it's not a weapon. It's not going to hurt anybody if he's wanting to get in here with money. And so, like, you don't know what side of the fence. He wasn't getting political on here, but you've got pieces of shit coming through this door all the time for political reasons that these guys get to see every day. So crazy stories and crazy stuff going on. It's not just a normal go into the courthouse screening center.
Hey, Roberto Bianco made a comment. If you could put that up, Mike, you're wrong. Politics 100% played into what went down that day, and it continues. Roberto, sure. Respectfully, I don't think you heard what I said. And I don't know if that was just inadvertent or that's you don't want to listen. What I said was that the officers that day, when riots started to happen, they didn't divide among political lines and each react according to their political preferences. Politics wasn't what was driving the response of the Capitol Police officers that day. That is what I said. Yeah, we clearly know that part of this big ball of yarn and mess is political. 100%. But like we go back to the beginning of the show, what I'd like to assert to this is we pull the politics out of policing and we put the onus of political division where it belongs and pull it out of each other, because this is exactly what they want. They want cops devouring each other. They want people devouring each other along political lines, because then we're distracted and we're not paying attention to the fact that all this is doing is further helping them keep their positions of political power. That is what the real division and the real problem is. So I just wanted to be very clear about that when it comes to politics. So let's go back to... we've talked a little bit about who the Capitol Police are and set the stage there, but go back to some of the things that are leading up to this. Some people say after when the vote was set to be certified in Congress January 6th, one of the chants inside the Capitol was, we're going to hang Mike Pence. You know, where's Pence? The gallows are outside. We need to start using them. Things like this. Because they felt that Pence betrayed Trump or whatever, and they felt that Trump himself had incited this, had called for this, had egged this on. Literally, that was a title of an article. Trump egged on the riots, the insurrection, or whatever. So what are your thoughts on that?
So anytime you have political theater or theatrics, and this is coming from all sides, there's always calls to actions. And you can see this with Maxine Waters on the other side. You can see it with Cori Bush on the other side. You could even argue that Obama, in one of his speeches, when he says, we're going to go marching, I mean, there's always a call to action. I don't know that Trump's call to action was any different than anybody else's call to action. And from talking to people that were in the crowd at the beginning, when those part of the speeches were happening, it was all very peaceful, and they were actually praying and singing hymnals. I'm not convinced that Trump said anything more inciting than what a lot of other politicians have said. I don't see the evidence of that. I know you could read a couple. You could read the 5 quotes that he said. We can go through them real quick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time here, but he said the main statements: we won this election and we won it by a landslide. So I get it.
That's not insightful to me at all.
That's not inciting a riot. Certain people believe that the election was stolen, and I'm going to play devil's advocate at the end of all this when we kind of have a wrap up. So just stand by, because I understand that people believe that the election was fraudulent and stolen. I get that you believe that. But saying that isn't inciting a riot. Isn't inciting an insurrection or violence. We will stop the steal. We will never give up. We will never concede. It doesn't happen. If you don't fight like hell, you're not going to have a country anymore. These are the kinds of quotes that all politicians would say. But he did end his speech that said, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. In his speech, he literally says, peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard. So I mean, I don't want to say that this started there. I mean, we knew that he was going to have a rally there, that this was going to happen. This was planned in the sense of like there was a rally. So, but again, like you said, Maxine Waters in April during the George Floyd trial says we're going to have to get more confrontational if there's no guilty verdict. If the jury that hasn't heard all the evidence yet doesn't say what I want them to say, then we, whoever that is that she's referring to, have to get more confrontational. So politicians say this kind of stuff all the time. And again, stop eating each other as cops and stop blaming cops and start blaming the people that are the ones that have something to gain by this. Anyway. So it starts with a little bit of political buildup and tension, but that's been going on for a long time in this country. And then the day of, you've got a massive complex, right? The Capitol area is a very, very large, several
300
square block area.
300 blocks, I think is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, someone can I can Google it real quick.
No, don't worry about it. It doesn't fucking matter.
It's large, right? Then you've got the actual Capitol building itself, a 2 blocks distance away, and these buildings are all somehow connected above ground or below ground. But you've got the RNC building where the Republican have offices and stuff like that, and then you've got the DNC building where Democratic politicians have their offices and, whatever. And there's like literally 6 figures of people here. There are roughly 900 Capitol police officers working during that day. Okay. So you're talking 900 to cover this whole area, and not all of them are uniformed presence. And also understand this, guys, not all uniformed cops are issued or have riot gear or riot training either. Like that's a specific training that, it's not like all of them have hard gear at the same time. And having massive amounts of people do a rally in DC or at the Capitol had become fairly commonplace too. So this wasn't like out of the ordinary, but there is 100,000. Some people say 100,000. I've seen estimates that said like almost 1 million people were there that day. We don't know the real full number, but it's high, right? So you have 100,000 some people, you've got 900 cops, you've got a vote certification that's going to happen. You've got 400 and some odd senators, members of Congress there, I should say, and you've got the vice president there. So not only do you have to have a uniformed presence that is at or near where people are at, but you've got a presence of officers that are by dignitaries and in key places inside during this session of Congress. So there's a lot going on.
You also have officers on traffic details to let traffic in and out, parking details. You still have your normal homeless guy that's having a fucking heart attack. That's going to take a couple of cops to deal with that. So you're stretched extremely thin at this point. Now, also like to argue, like they brought in Metropolitan PD to help out as well. So there was a lot of Metropolitan, but not until it was almost too late, right? So this is
correct.
So you've got, now this is what's important, and this is where things get a little bit sketchy. And going back to, I forgot what this knucklehead in the comments, I don't say knucklehead, I shouldn't have probably called you a knucklehead. That was probably mean. But anyway, you talked about, he said former military almost unilaterally support civil disobedience and ignoring Biden and Pelosi. Time for the police to do the same. Well, the military veterans back in the 20s were also bamboozled and duped into actually backing up a fascist movement. And it wasn't until this General Smedley Butler was like, yo, idiots, you're playing into this mob mentality where you're told one thing is the truth, but if you clearly look at it, it's not the truth.
Yeah.
And you idiots need to stop. And then like it stopped one of the biggest insurrections
What was
ever.
that? What was that general's name? Smedley?
Smedley Butler. And that was when there was like,
Butler.
I mean, dude, there was like 40,000 veterans marching on the Capitol with guns and shit. And this guy was like, hold your tone, boys, because what they're telling you isn't true. And which is really funny because there was this mob mentality study done. And so after I read all about that insurrection in the 20s, I was looking at mob mentalities. And one of the biggest studies that was ever taken place after this was in the 50s. And this is a really funny study. So, and it's important to the insurrection, the riot, whatever you want to call it, whatever is least offensive to you. A single participant was put in a room with 7 undercover accomplices, right? So there's one dude, 7 people that they don't know. The people conducting the experiment presented the group with 4 lines. They just drew 4 lines. And the goal was to determine which 2 lines were the same length. Now, it was obvious which 2 lines were the same length. Completely fucking obvious. But the 7 undercover accomplices purposefully gave the incorrect answer and said it was like A and D when in reality it was B and C. And so so 7 of these undercover people are like, yeah, it's definitely those 2, which was the wrong answer. And 1 out of 3 participants out of lots of applicants. But at the end, 1 out of every 3 agreed with the 7 accomplices, even though it was obviously false. And what it is this mob mentality on the base level that if you're told something is true by enough people, you'll actually start to believe it. And so what we have going on here is a little bit of that same. We have a lot of people giving you false information. And it doesn't matter whatever the mob is going with, even though that you were there to protest peacefully and you had different things. Same with Black Lives Matter, right? How many Black Lives Matter people march? How many of you in our wolf pack might be completely in support of BLM, and you may have been a part of these peaceful protests? However, it was just some shitbags that started shit, right? Yeah. So we have that playing in here.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Again, we have to encourage the step back from our own politics, because that's just it. The Smedley Butler, yes, he was a crazy military like war
hero
expert.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, crazy. His story, and what was nuts was just like you said. You look it up, guys. Look up the business plot. If you look up the business plot, you're going to be amazed at the similarities between how politicians and powerful people in the media and business partnered together to literally try to get World War I soldiers to become an army raised up to make the president a sham and seat someone as a new cabinet position that was the head of the army. and raise up a fascist regime from inside our own government. And they were trying to use soldiers from World War I to do it in the background. And so the similarities of what's going on is leveraging people that have a particular persuasion or experience for their benefit, not our own. But we don't want to go. We can't.
I do think it's funny to a point that the big one that was called the Big Deal, the Big New Deal, right?
FDR had the New Deal.
Was called the Big
Deal,
the Big New Deal. But anyway, one of the big insurrectionists of that period that was duping the soldiers was actually the last President Bush's Prescott Bush, which was George Bush's father. George Bush Sr.'s father was Prescott Bush, and he was the one that was actually leading that insurrection, which was 100% a fascist movement for fascism. So a lot of you are like, well, wait on, man, I fucking voted for Bush, and hell yeah.
Like,
well,
crazy.
Okay. But Bush was also probably one of the bigger pieces of shit on the planet, and I think all of these assholes are all connected. So there you go there. These guys don't have anything in your minds. And so if it wasn't for General Snedley Butler that said, like, look, dude, I've been in all of your wars. And now that I'm old enough and I've got 2 Medal of Honors and I've been in literally like 4 of your major wars, boys, this is literally going against what you believe in. And you should probably not march on DC. And had he not been there, we'd have this crazy totalitarian fascist, where all the soldiers are with the government. So
we setting the stage, we have political tension, and we mentioned Trump and Maxine Waters as just examples of the types of things that they may say and be interpreted by the people that follow their political persuasion and the actions that come of that. Putting the responsibility where it belongs there or doesn't belong, but there's political tension. We have the Capitol Police that we have explained who they are, what their scope of authority is, what their day-to-day practice may look like, the number of people working there that day. And then we have these rioters and rally people. Again, the one side of the media, as it were, is big on saying mostly peaceful protests, right? This was also a mostly peaceful protest because it wasn't most people there to storm the Capitol or to hang Mike Pence or whatever else. It was mostly peaceful, and there was 100-some thousand plus people there, and a thin police force there because it's normal to have people in DC rallying and protesting and all that stuff. And most of the time, there aren't issues. Although in April, a Capitol police officer was killed when someone rammed the gates of the Capitol and killed a police officer, drove straight at him at the gate, and he died instantly. So that stuff does happen, but this is the context of this. And you have a massive area of property with a massive amount of people on it. And everybody's like, I saw the footage from that day and they were just letting people in. It's like, we'll get there. But no, they weren't. I mean, not in the way that you think they were. So they find a pipe bomb. Okay. They find a pipe bomb planted at a tree near the Republican National Committee building. And at the time, the Republican congressmen were having a religious gathering. Actually, they were some of them were there near that tree where part of that building was, singing some songs, praying, whatever. And they discover this pipe bomb. And not only did they discover the pipe bomb, and I want to be careful not to give away law enforcement sensitive information, but let's just say this: the pipe bomb was real, and they had reason to believe that it was going to be detonated. So they had to spring into action, right? So now you've got hundreds of thousands of people all over the place on all sides of the Capitol building and in the area. And now you have a real legitimate threat that is discovered. Okay. So do you want to kind of pick up from there what happens, Tansey?
Yeah. So this pipe bomb that was planted, the only real information that they have was that they believe it to be possibly a black female. And that's just based on a couple of different factors. And they don't know who she belongs to or what party affiliation belongs to. So that happens. And a bunch of officers now, if you're a cop, you know what a bomb situation looks like, right? So lots of officers to fix this problem, because now we have to cordon the surrounding area, get all the people away from the bomb. But where does that put you as a cop? Right in the blast of the bomb. And we've seen from 9/11, we've seen the videos that anytime you're getting close to these problems, a lot of times you're going to have loss of life on behalf of first responders too. Okay. So now you're a cop and your mindset is shit, I have to go over here. So now there's some really brave fucking cops that had to go near this bomb to push everybody else away from the bomb. So that's pretty crazy too. Now you've got people in the crowd that aren't necessarily going to know that you're pushing them away from a bomb. And they're like, why do I have to leave? Oh, there's a bomb. Where's the bomb? There's no bomb going to blow up. So you got all the Karens that you got to deal with. Karens could be guy or girl, Chads and Kyles and Karens. And so you're trying to get them away. And then we get another fucking pipe bomb on the DNC side. So now you're sending even more officers. And we started this day with like 900 officers. And I would be willing to bet that you need at least 60 officers for each bomb. Now,
yeah, there was another bomb. Yes, but we're trying to kind of walk you through what happened. We set the political stage.
Yeah, don't jump ahead.
What are the Capitol Police? How many are there that day? What we're walking you through the actual situation here. Whether you've heard it before or whether you've heard it skewed, we're telling you based on our research what we believe the sequence of events was. Yes, there was one pipe bomb found that starts it. They do find another pipe bomb. It does happen, and they will also find a suspicious vehicle left like in a courtyard type area. So you've got 3 credible threats on the property that are happening while you have several thousand, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, depending on what numbers you want to believe, present at the Capitol. Okay, this is the stage that we're setting of what's happening. And so now these officers spring into action. They have to go, like AOC's office, for example, has a window facing the first pipe bomb. So they go to her office and they say, hey, where's the dignitary? Where's the lady? Where's the woman? Where's AOC? Oh, she's in her office. They got to go in and say, ma'am, you got to go. We have a pipe bomb that could explode at any moment, and your office windows are here. You could be hurt. We need you to evacuate. We're evacuating the RNC and DNC based on these threats that we're uncovering.
Yeah. So, and then how many officers do you think it's going to take to escort her out? Right. So she's already got 60 as a dignitary service. They're probably going to need a little bit more to get her out, and then they got to evacuate the whole building. Now, here's where things get. And this is not conspiracy theory, and I'm not going down that rabbit hole with you, but this is a fact that could lead you to believing that there are other things afoot here.
Hold on. Let's pause right there real quick before I forget. Right now is the moment where we start to say, oh man, this shit's about to get real, and we don't have enough people to deal with this.
Right.
We could have avoided this. There was a way to have avoided this thin number of police officers who are literally not equipped, not because they're cowards, not because they're mall cops. They just don't have the numbers to battle 100,000 people storming a building, right? Or the equipment as an agency. They just don't have it, right? But somebody does, and it had been used previously, and there was an opportunity to use this. Tell us about that, Tansey.
During the Black Lives Matter riots, now this is fact. There's no theory here, okay? And this is coming from the words of many of the officers that were there that day that are stationed at Metropolitan PD and Capitol Police. During the Black Lives Matter protest, Trump initiated the National Guard. And when the National Guard showed up, one of the Capitol policemen said, dude, they had fucking Apaches flying so low over the city that it was actually, like, for somebody that wasn't in the military, it was actually really rad to see how that happened. But there was such a massive presence of National Guardsmen. They were everywhere. They were on every corner. And the mayor of DC, and there's an article that you can go look up on the article that he said, I realized that we had enacted the National Guard, but I never would have let them bring their guns. That wasn't made clear to me. My question to you, Mayor, is I don't know how fucking stupid you could possibly be. When soldiers show up, you think they just fucking show up without guns? Like, that's the most fucking retarded thing I've ever heard. So I'd probably rethink who I just hearing that alone, I probably wouldn't vote for that guy ever again.
The mayor probably put out
he seems like
notice.
a real
Hey, everybody, come on
moron.
out for National Guard laser tag day. Bring your kids out. Water guns, squirt guns for everyone.
So there was this massive group of BLM that showed up to the White House at that time, and that was seen as racist or injustice. And the sergeant at arms, right? Remember, we told you the sergeant at arms, which is chosen by Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. It's their right to choose it. This is all written in Congress. This is all stemming from the 1827, I believe, is when they enacted the Capitol Police. And so when the sergeant of arms, he said the optics of having the National Guard do not look good. Now, what is my favorite quote, Mike?
Guns up, giddy up.
Perception isn't.
Oh, yeah. Perception isn't reality.
Right. And for some reason, perception is not reality has changed in America to perception is reality. And so I've even heard police chief talk to me in a section, well, you can't do that because perception is reality. And I went, oh, what? No. Perception is not reality.
Sometimes it lines up with reality.
Sometimes it does,
sometimes
but
it doesn't.
No. That's not how this world works, baby. Just because I have a knife in my chest and Mike's standing over me does not mean that Mike killed me.
I probably did.
That. Probably did, but it doesn't mean he did. So we can't just go off of perception. I mean, that's how like Salem witch trials and all this other crazy
But you know
shit
what
happened.
I would do for you, Tansey?
What?
If I was going to stab you in the chest, I would definitely plunge the knife deep into your heart while you were on a ghost bed so that you were mildly comfortable while I stabbed you to death.
Yes.
I'm not saying that's a real threat. That's not a credible threat. It's not a call to violence. I don't want a Tansey insurrection. I'm not trying to overthrow Tansey.
You want a
Tansey
if I were direction.
It's like OJ's book. I didn't do it, but if I did, I'm not planning on killing Tansey. But if I was going to, I would stab him on a ghost bed.
Which we all see that I am wearing my ghost bed shirt today.
And it's probably because he would have asked me to play tummy sticks, and I would have been deeply offended, and I would have gone into a blind rage. This is my defense ahead of time. I just went into a blind rage.
Yes,
I blacked out.
This is the point of the show where we get into our lovely sponsor, Ghostbed, from ghostbed.com/drinking bros. I think that has now changed to /Wolfpack.
I don't know.
Why don't we try Wolfpack first? And then if that doesn't work, go to ghostbed.com/drinking bros. But we love Ghostbed. They have been a loyal sponsor. You know what? Let me go back to this. Take over for me for a minute because I remember seeing a new Ghostbed email. I want to make sure I get this ad read correct.
So take over the topic of the day. Go back, and then we go back to the Ghostbed.
Yeah, I'll go back to Ghostbed. I'll do my Ghostbed ad here in just a minute.
So literally, what is happening at the Capitol? Then they uncover these credible threats. They begin to move people out. And so, for example, AOC, who said she has PTSD from this whole thing, never even was in the Capitol that day. She was removed. She was angry about it. She was pissy about it. And the Capitol Police actually were trying to save her life from, in the event that there's an explosion, that glass wouldn't fly all over into her body and kill her from shrapnel. But this is all happening. And then what begins to happen is that there is a group in multiple locations that begin to sort of like escalate the situation. In any big event like this, of course, you've got people who aren't there to just peacefully make their opinions or ideology known. They're agitators. They spin people up. They came there with an agenda that wasn't the agenda of the majority. No matter what hat they were wearing, no matter what outfit they were wearing, no matter how they were dressed in pants and body armor, whatever there was going on there, then they begin to push into the Capitol. Normally, the Capitol is open to the public. That's a normal thing. Then with all of the COVID stuff, with the COVID thing, then that was why the the Capitol wasn't open to the general public or whatever. And that we're not going to get into the COVID argument right now, but either way, that was the situation. And they start pushing their way in, and now they're spinning the crowd up. They're amping people up. And now we've gone from rally to protest to moving into riot, right? Now people are starting to break windows. People are starting to push through doors. People are starting to yell violent things. People are starting to literally, you watch the body cam footage of what was his name? Fanone? Is that what it was? Yep. Tansey? Fanone. Yep. You watch his body cam. Like, he's not making this stuff up. No. When I first saw the Senate hearing, I was like, well, I want to see the body cam of this. And then I saw it and I'm like, oh, this is legit. He legit got tackled, beaten, tased, and then his fellow officers came and dragged him to safety. And you can see this on a body cam. It happened. Like, this became a shit show. Like, this wasn't just, originally I was like, this is probably just 40 or 50 people. Like, no, it wasn't like that. This got spun up. It might have started with 40 or 50 people agitating, but this quickly spiraled into a shit show. You've got 3 credible threats, 2 pipe bombs, a truck with unknown substance inside. You've got people starting to storm windows and doors. And I don't want to talk about whether or not we'll talk about the mindset of those people as we go along. But
what you have here is a breakdown and a failure in upper management and upper leadership, as we have talked about. So you have the sergeant at arms chosen by Pelosi and Schumer. Like, again, that's important to know. And Chief Sons has requested, he's the chief of the Capitol Police. He has requested to the sergeant of arms, who outranks him, different than other police departments. He has requested the National Guard. He knows this is 2 days prior to this whole event. He had requested the National Guard because he knew shit was going to get out of control. And the National Guard kept Black Lives Matter from entering the Capitol and doing the same thing, because we saw Black Lives Matter protests take over federal buildings and police precincts. And that is why there was the National Guard. Yeah, that is why the National Guard was enacted. And so then they said, well, Trump is a racist and da, 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 da. Well, now you have a whole bunch of white Republicans or white conservatives, however you want to take it, coming to the Capitol. And all of a sudden, Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer do not allow the National Guard to come in. So under Trump's leadership, the sergeant at arms allows the National Guard to come in, but now we're not letting the National Guard come in. And so
that's not a political statement.
That's not a political statement. That's just a factual thing that happened. When 6 times Chief Sons requested before the January 6th inauguration that they needed more assets. They needed more people. They did not. The sergeant of arms did not even call in additional squads that were off of duty. Now, how many police out there in the chats were in your own little small towns like Raleigh or Atlanta or Charlotte who were not, if you were not on shift, you still got called in to work these riots. Now, it does beg to question, and a lot of these other officers, these line officers who I call the real cops, right? These are the real men. These guys, the dum-dums, as the leadership would like to call them, the peasants, they are like, yo, this makes no sense. Why are we not bringing in other squads to work? Why is there no fucking National Guard? And why don't we have any assets? Like, they have had in 20 plus years of service. This one gentleman said this guy's over 25 years of service with Washington, with Metropolitan Police. And he says that they have had 1 week of riot training. You're in the fucking Capitol. Give these guys some training. So you've got the peasants, the lower ranking real cops wanting more assets going into this, and they don't get it. And now the day happens. We have pipe bombs. We have people that need to get out of there. We now have some agitators going on in the crowd. You have over 1 million people. I mean, not over 1 million people, but you have upwards of 1 million people. Let's just say 300,000 people. And you have way less than 900 cops to deal with this. So the anxiety and the stress level on the radios is going to be elevated. The stress level and anxiety inside each individual cop is going to be elevated. All the while, these chiefs, these sergeant at arms, these House committee, the Speaker of the House, they're all washing their hands completely clean of this and pushing a lot of the blame at that time on the police.
Yes. So
accusing them of not doing a good job. Let's not forget that they accused a lot of these cops of not doing a good job. So
yes. And then in the melee of all of this, you've got a couple of things that happen. Let's talk about the two key things that stands out in most people's mind. One is the Capitol Officer Sicknick, who passed away. Originally, the story came out that he was hit in the head with a fire extinguisher, and that was what killed him. That he was, attacked, and it hit his head, knocks him out, and he subsequently dies from that injury. Now, the medical examiner has since said that there was other officers who basically have said they saw him fall. That they don't know what happened. Did he hit his head when he fell? What all caused it? He died from a stroke in the hospital within a day of this incident happening. And so yes, he responded. Yes, he goes down while he's working in the middle of the situation. There is no. He just died of natural causes, as far as the medical examiner has said, not from any particular trauma. So I don't know. Those are the facts of that.
Right. I mean, some people think, obviously you can have a stroke when you've had a big head injury. I am not taking away that this guy didn't die in the line of duty, because he did.
No,
man. And
he did.
For every fucking cop that showed up there, we want to applaud you first and foremost. So please don't misunderstand us today.
100%.
You guys showed up.
Nothing but respect.
You guys held the line. If you have never held a line, especially in the presence of so many people that were all being pieces of shit. Not everybody in that crowd was being a piece of shit, but there were some real fucking turds in that crowd. And if you don't want to believe that because of for politics, well, you know what? I'm sad for you. If you can't let your politics down long enough to humanize the badge, as we call it, fuck you, really. There were some real assholes in that crowd. A civil society doesn't act like that. I don't care what political stance you take. A civil society doesn't throw Molotov cocktails into small business owners' buildings. Civil society doesn't, say you're either with us or against us, and we're going to kill, we're going to take your own gun and kill you with it. You don't put up a fucking lynching mob. I mean, this is all shit that you see in the 1800s, man. We're so much smarter than that. And so
are we though?
Well, obviously not.
Obviously not.
Real dum-dums in that crowd. And we are 100% going to back up the cops that held that line. I'm 100% going to back up those cops every time. So it's a tragedy that this cop died, but let's not also forget about the 20 cops who have died during the summer of 2020. We lost 20 officers in the riots, and over 200 people died over the summer as a result of the summer's riots. So the fact that we make this insurrection the end all be all to all of news across, and that this is a historic event, I'm not sure that it's any more historical on a humanizing level as what went on in Seattle, Portland, Atlanta.
At a street level, when an entire police precinct is taken over by force, or when court buildings are firebombed and smashed and attacked in Portland, when entire city blocks are taken over by rioters in Seattle, and there's days that stretched into weeks, that stretched into months of riot control and violence control in these cities. And now we're having Senate hearings about this and making this this watershed moment. So we'll get to the politics of that, but continuing on with the situation, we had a Capitol officer that lost his life in this melee. Then we had a female, Ashley Babbitt, I believe was her name, was shot and killed. And some people I know have been mentioning this in the comments and the live stream and all that stuff about how come we don't know this cop or whatever else. I can't answer the question of, how these investigations are taking place. It's a different ball game when it comes to the federal side of things. Yes. But I believe, I'm confident in saying that, that point, if that point would have been broken, then there would have been you're in the chambers and there's some serious issues there. But I don't believe this was an intentional shooting. I believe that officer did not intend to fire his weapon. And
It does beg the question. I mean, I've watched it. He does take a step forward and lunge forward. We have read about sympathetic reflexes where you do one thing with one part of your body and your other part of the body is going to react to that. So I think if you look at it objectively through that, I think that step forward, it very easily could have. Now, I do know I was able to talk to some very brave people who reached out to me that officer is not under investigation because the shooting actually was justified. So even though he may or may not have accidentally shot her, it was definitely a justified shooting in the fact that was the last stand and they had orders that there were people still on the floor in there and that anybody comes through there. And I would say on Babbitt's behalf, you got some dudes in suits putting a gun in your face and there's chairs and everything stacked up and you've been able to freely roam around this Capitol building without this happening to you yet. And you suddenly get to one point where there's dudes with guns in your faces and shit stacked on the doors as in saying, this is the last stand. And you still put your hand through the thing to try to open the door. I mean, did you not think you're going to get one in the face for that? I don't know. Like, I guess maybe common sense isn't so common in stressful situations. And I understand that from a, tactical purpose, but oh God. And then they said that she was in the military. I haven't confirmed that. I don't know, but damn, I don't know. You got to be smarter than that.
yeah,
It's like the Breonna Taylor thing. You fuck around long enough and you're going to find out.
Yeah. And so people don't, it's easier. I think it's easier to believe in some giant conspiracy than it is to actually do what we're doing right now and look at this big ball of yarn of all these strings and take them out and look at them as pieces, the idea that shit happens. This was a crazy shit show and it's easier. I actually get a little frustrated with people who just want to just go one extreme or the other and believe that their line of reasoning answers everything of that day when it's just not possible. It just doesn't work. It doesn't line up logically. You can't buy into right or left conspiracies about this whole thing. You can't go far left and say, oh, this was all planned and orchestrated by Trump or a particular right-wing extremist group. They had this whole thing organized. I don't think so. And you can't go on the here and say, oh, well, the left planned this whole thing and they hoped that this would happen. And that I don't think either conspiracy theory lines up with the facts of the day. I think there's a lot of moving parts and a lot of people knew that January 6th was happening. A lot of people knew that January 6th is a big day for a lot of different reasons that have political connections and personal connections and ideologies clashing, and people knew that was going to happen. And there are people who get there and go crazy, and the police are left to deal with that mess. And yeah, it was a crazy situation. So what finally brought it under control? Like how did it wind down? I know that Metro Police came in. They were calling for backup. Obviously, more and more cops show up. Contrary to popular belief, they did make arrests that day.
This is where I believe you have to disregard the insurrection speech. And I know that's going to offend some people, but if you had a plan going into this, if this large mob, if this group of people actually had a real plan, they wouldn't have got into the White House or into the Capitol building and then been like,
now what?
Now what? They got in there, they walked around, they were like, well, this is not as interesting as we thought it was. I almost feel like I regret this. Let's probably get the fuck out. I think it's also important to think that if this was a true insurrection and a real march on the White House, and we're talking about a conservative base of people, I mean, we can objectively say that these were predominantly conservative human beings. Conservatives probably hold more guns than anybody else in the country. I think that's a fair assessment. Is it not? That's not fair, is it? I don't know. I mean, conservatives are more like pro-gun and stereotypically speaking, gun handlers, preppers, whatnots. If they were really trying to overthrow the government, don't you think they would have showed up with some of those fucking guns? Because not one gun was used, to my knowledge, during this insurrection.
If this was Hans, taking over Nakatomi, there would have been some planning involved. These guys were idiots.
This was mob mentality,
totally,
just like BLM was, just like
totally,
all that stuff.
Totally over the top, violent, crazy, stupid. Yes, all those things are great adjectives. Orchestrated, planned insurrection. My take from talking to several officers in that area was that with the sheer volume of people that were there, if there was a plan to do that, there would have been a massive takeover of that building that would have required a massive military and police response to actually deal with it. This is where when people start saying, well, they just walked in, they were let in. Let me, do you have anything to add right there, Tansey, before I kind of explain the barricade thing and people being quote unquote let in?
No, I just think it's important. Like, I know some people are like blowing me up, but they disagree with the girl getting shot in the face. If that's your last stand, and I don't know, I think that the officer that was there, I know that I have inside information that this guy's not the smartest cop in the world anyway, and that's why he was put there. It's at the back of the building.
Somebody should ever go on there. Like he had left his gun in the bathroom before.
Yes,
like things
he had
like
left.
That.
He forgot his gun in a public bathroom, and so he was kind of like, we
know this to be true. Yes,
he's put onto the floor like where nothing's ever going to happen, and so this guy has no warrior mindset. This guy has no like tactical sense. He just kind of writing out the career. And I'm not opposed to borderline shaming this guy just because he has kind of a history of fucking shit up. And so when you put somebody like that and then he ends up getting, it's like if you have the shitty kid on the baseball team that just absolutely sucks and everybody else is injured and you're down by 1, bases are loaded and there's 2 outs and he comes up to bat. I mean, you're kind of like, shit, we're probably going to lose this game. That's this guy. Like, is he still on the baseball team? Sure. But do we kind of feel like he's not the one that we want there? So now he's been put in this situation where it sucks. Like, you don't want the shittiest kid on the team up to plate in this scenario. It just fucking happened that way. Nobody wanted it to.
Yep.
And this dude shot her in the face. But at the same time, this dumb bitch fucking tried to put her hand through the last stand and open the door to the fucking floor of, where there were still people on the house floor. So
the vice president is there. I mean, there's a lot going on here.
Again, man. That's to me sleeping with tigers. You sleep with them long enough, you're gonna get your fucking head off.
Just show, like, this whole thing when unplanned violent events are spun up, crazy stuff is going to happen. Like, unpredictable responses and actions are going to happen, and you don't have to like that reality at all for it to be true. Perception is not reality. But one thing I want to address, and I think this kind of wraps up the sort of like sequence of events, is this idea, and I've seen it in the comments here on the live stream, and I know that people are going to be listening to the show back, and they're going to be screaming at their cars or their phones, they were let in by the police. If this, and this borders and tends toward the conspiracy theory that this was all planned by the government somehow to let them in, that they were told, let them in or whatever else. Well, they were told to let them in, but why? Why? First of all, watch. I spent 5 hours watching footage, testimony, conversations. If you haven't done that yet, then chill out, first of all. But when you do, you start to realize, well, they just move these bike racks out of the way and just let them in. They welcomed them in, put out the red carpet. No, that's on some videos they do, but why? Did you ask yourself why? In other videos, you see literally the Capitol Police pushing against bike racks and pushing a crowd back. So which is it? In some videos, you see them backing away from doors. In other videos, you see them guarding doors and people punching by their heads and smashing windows by their heads. Which is it? Well, it's both. It's both. This isn't like your house, guys. This isn't like, the average house has 8 windows and 2 doors. This isn't you defending your house and this is how I would do it. Shut up. It's not real life. That's not the Capitol building. And
they've got 900 dudes and no National Guard.
They've got 900 total, not that many accessible in uniforms with hard gear. Like it's just not a reality. And so when this is happening, so you've got the threats begin to unfold with pipe bombs, a mysterious vehicle. You're trying to escort staff out. You've got some staff that begin to hunker down because the crowd's getting spun up, and now shit's popping off. And eventually, the leadership of the Capitol Police, whoever is making decisions, says, "All right, shift of priorities." They early on begin to stop people, or trying to stop people from pushing their way in. That's what it starts as. And there is video, an abundance of video to back this up. They start that way. And eventually, as this situation escalates, someone makes a literal game time decision, a riot time decision, says, we are giving up the Capitol building. Back up, let them in. Which we have to change to preservation of life.
That order, the guy that gave that order, we're not saying that was the right order or not, but that guy is still suspended right now that gave that order. Let's just put that out there too. Sorry.
Yeah, that's fact.
So there was this order that went over the phone, but this guy's also been suspended for giving that order because it necessarily wasn't. Well, they don't know. They don't know if that's the right order or not. Now, I want to adjust really fast. Robert, you keep referring to in the comments as a narrative. Homie, we don't have a narrative. Like literally, Mike and I did not talk until last night about this. And I have watched, dude, I have spent so much time of my life researching and watching this and plugging in from every single angle. And the only narrative I have in this is that the cops showed up and did hard work, and we're coming from look, here we go. We are the voice for police officers. We are a voice for police officers. We're not a voice of the police officers. We're not saying we speak for every single cop on this planet. We're just simply a voice that is speaking on behalf of officers. So if there's any narrative here, it's us speaking from a police perspective.
We have no
but in order to break this down, Big Bird to Cookie Monster style, we have to be objective and we have to look at every angle. We have to dispel some of your conspiracies and all these things. We can't get into it. Listen, do I have my own conspiracy theories about the day? Absolutely. I 100% do. Do I have my own emotional feelings? 100% I do. But that's not what this show is for. The show is to break down a police perspective, boots on the ground, what was going on that day.
Factually. Not just what people are seeing in the media. We've already given you information that most people don't ever talk about with this. Real quick, before we dive into sort of like the fallout from this, the hearings and some of that stuff, did you square away our Ghostbed information so that I can stab you on it later?
Gosh, yeah, but then I answered like 16 fucking texts. Because people like to text me while we're on this show, which is really fun.
I've been looking at my phone sometimes.
But anyway, we do love Ghostbed. They have been a loyal sponsor with the Drinking Bros for over the past 5 years. Everybody raves about them. Look, we all like them. Mike and I are huge fans. They have super comfortable mattresses, and they're made in the good old USA. Every mattress has a 20-year warranty, and you can try it out for 101 nights, not 98, not 99, but 101. If you don't like it, you can send it back. No hard feelings, man. They don't give a shit.
Rumor has it that Chris and Andrew Cuomo have both purchased with the code Drinking Bros. Or Wolfpack. We don't know.
My buddy actually bought his Ghostbed and then saw the bundle thing. So he's now returning his Ghostbed easily to get the upgraded one with the entire bundle. So and by the way, he's a single dude and he would love to try out his new Ghostbed with another single female out there. So shout out to Austin,
fellow
and
homosexual
conquests out there, his sexual conquest. But every mattress has a 20-year warranty. One of the favorite parts about Ghostbed is that each mattress has the cooling technology. That is my favorite. You know what I always say? I like to stay cool while staying hard, baby. Nobody wants to be hard and hot at the same time. And if you live here in North Carolina where it's humid as shit, that nice cooling technology is where it's at, baby. But Ghostbed also offers bundles, so you can get everything you need. You don't even really have to think about it. Just choose from their 4 mattresses and then pick your bundle. So whether you just need a mattress and a frame, or you want it all, like the cooling pillows and the sheets, which I mean, if you're going to buy it all, yes, right?
I want it all. And I want it now.
You can get the best bang for your buck, because bang for buck is always the most important. So right now, Ghostbed is offering a flash sale, 40% off Ghostbed bundles where you get the mattress and the adjustable base, or 30% off of everything if you use the promo code, and it is still Drinking Bros, DRINKINBROS at ghostbed.com/Drinking Bros. You can buy a mattress for $35 a month if you have mediocre at best credit. 0 down, 0% financing. Go check them out. Ghostbed.com/Drinking Bros. All right, let's get back to, because we're getting to my favorite part of the my favorite part of this whole scenario coming up, which is going to really piss some people off in the comments.
Well,
so you just get ready. Hey, you just get ready, baby. I'm ready for the haymakers.
So do we cover let's recap up to this point, guys. Maybe you fast forwarded because you're waiting for us to say something you agree with, or you're fast forwarding so that you can disagree with us. But we're truly we truly broke this down as objectively as possible, while also making it abundantly clear that we don't want cops devouring each other over this. We stand united with our brothers and sisters who are simply out there doing what they raised their hand and said they wanted to do, and take an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And we stand with that. Cops that take that oath and live that out, we stand with them. We stand for them. We're not backing down from that. We think leadership that takes away from that sucks. And none of them deserve a ghost bed. And that's our take on that. Politics is crazy. You need to divorce yourself and be very careful to step back for a second from your politics to look at what the real division in the country is. Tension builds through the election. We know that the vote is going to be certified. Hundreds of thousands of people show up on the Capitol. Senators are there. The vice president are there. Congressman's there. People are there at the location. There's not enough cops there. The National Guard are denied, not requested, even though they were requested by the PD. They were requested by people, and they were denied by Congress, by Pelosi directly, said no, because the optics would be bad. Not that the optics on the riot were any better, really. Threats emerge. Cops deal with the threats. Crowd spins up. It begins to get out of control. Leadership says, change of plans. Stop trying to block the rioters. Protect life. That's the goal. Find someone, get with other cops, find people who are staffers and people, protect them, and the property and the place, we're giving it up. Okay, that's happening. So when you start seeing cops back away and let people in, that's what you're seeing. You're seeing them say, okay, this is our new goal, is to make sure that the preservation of life, and that's
there's
what's
also
happening.
A lot of things here that you don't know and that we don't know. We were actually given some crazy information that we are actually choosing not to disclose with you, because we feel like for the betterment of security, for the betterment of privacy, it's probably just better not telling everybody. I don't really believe that the world needs to know. Remember, this is the Capitol building, and there are things in there. There are things in there that might be of secretive nature. There might be people in there that you didn't know were there. There might be things going on that just aren't that you just simply don't know about, and that they're not going to disclose to the public for good reasons. And you kind of have to have a little bit of trust in some things within reason.
That's tough, man. Trust the government, right? Like Ronald Reagan, the scariest words.
It's okay to question it. We're not saying that these conspiracies are fake or that they're not real. So please don't think that we're discrediting your theories. And matter of fact, when the government keeps throwing out the word conspiracy theory over and over again, it does make me want to question some of these theories, because why do you keep saying that over and over again if you're not hiding something? So I get it that there probably were some things that we're not privy to, but on the police level, there was no conspiracy there. These policemen were scared. These policemen were overran. They did not have the assets that they needed. They didn't have the men that they needed. And these guys are all doing the best that they can with what they have to offer. And you have a scared lieutenant who has now gone on the radio and says, fall back. Everybody move. We're going to shift positions because there are people that have to get out. And then you have this woman that got shot in the face. And one of you guys said, well, since when is there a constitution to shoot into a crowd just before simply reaching through a door? and then saying somebody else mentioned that deadly force for opening a door. Listen, just because you're unarmed doesn't mean that you can't fucking kill somebody. And I don't know. Common sense says that if you're trying to get into the White House, Secret Service, if you're running across the lawn of the White House unarmed, and you don't think the Secret Service is going to fucking put one in your face?
Been there, happened. Oh, well, I wasn't there, but
I mean, come on.
So
guys.
what's your favorite part of all this? Because I have what makes me mad. So we end the situation. Backup comes in. Eventually, they fizzle themselves out. This is why I'm not really sure that an insurrection is the right word for this, because an insurrection, a true insurrection, would be a coordinated effort, whether subtly, to infiltrate the government without force, or to overthrow it by force. And neither of those things happened that day. Neither of them. I don't think that would meet the criteria for an insurrection. So I'm not a fan of saying that it was an insurrection.
Yeah.
Definitely a riot. Definitely a violent mob. 100%. But an insurrection, I don't think that we're looking at that. But we go fast forward to the recent hearings where 4 officers, I believe it was 2 Capitol officers and 2 Metro DC officers. Am I correct about that testified?
Yes.
Yep. So this happens, and then I saw like cops devouring each other over this, and then everybody kind of like picking their sides on the whole issue. I'll tell you straight up what pissed me off when I saw this. And why some people have criticized me, whether through the socials, because they say I'm not well, why aren't you supporting the Capitol Police? Well, we are very clear today supporting Capitol Police officers. And I'm not taking away from anything that they said at the Senate hearing. That's a one conversation. But what bothers me is the fact that this is where the political string we're tugging on the yarn here is. The problem is that over the last year, the Major Cities Chiefs Association released data that they tracked. This is just what they could track. From May of 2020 to June of 2021, they tracked over 2,000 officer injuries in the course of that year. Over the course of 574 distinct riots. We're not talking about protests. They had to work protests too, because the riots to protest ratio is about 7%. So things that were categorized as actual violent riots comprised about 7% of all of the protests that spun up across the country. And 2,000 officers were injured. There were 624 arsons. There were 2,385 instances of looting, forced looting of places, 97 cop cars burned and destroyed. So all of this was happening over the course of a year. And what pisses me off, my initial reaction to seeing these officers brought in about the January 6th thing, is seeing how blatant it is that this is political, not at the line end of things like me and you political. This is political because the people in power are driving a narrative. And where was the hearing about all of the Black Lives Matter protests that turned violent?
Anytime the government,
how come we don't have 2,000 officers that were all injured telling their stories from those protests? This was particularly chosen by the Senate committee hearing and by politicians to highlight so that it drives a particular political narrative. That's where things get political, not in the moment. But this is being used or leveraged by politicians to continue to divide us. And that's what pisses me off.
Anytime the government has to use theatrics, and anytime the government is picking and choosing and letting a voice be heard, you always have to ask why. Why now? So going to Mike's point, why does the government want you to hear a police voice now? Because it suits them and it creates their narrative. You know, why didn't they want the police's voices to be heard when they had their jaws broken and wired shut? And the 20 officers that died in other riots. So why is it now that the government wants you to hear their voice? And then who did they pick? And so we dove into that, and we talked to some fellow guys that worked with Harry Dunn, which was the first guy. Is that all right if we go ahead and dive into this, Mike?
Yeah. Have at
So
it.
Harry
This
Dunn
is
is the
important
first-
stuff.
Harry Dunn was the first one to give his testimony that day, and he's a larger than life black man. He was I believe a Canadian football player prior to joining the police force. And he's just a very big over the top guys. And the overwhelming consensus of people I talk to say he's a really nice, likable guy. Almost none of the people we talked to agreed with his politics, but they all do agree that he is actually a really good cop and that he's a really good person. And so it doesn't matter where you politically stand or what you think what happened that day. Please look at Harry Dunn in the light that he is actually in real life a good person. Now, the second guy that was on the Senate hearing, the floor there, it was, I forgot his name. Was it Gomes or something like that? It was the Haitian guy. I forgot his name. I'm so sorry.
Haitian?
Or no, Gano. That is him, Gano. Or Haitian. I don't know what he is. The guy with the
I don't think
guy.
he was. I don't know. Maybe he was Haitian. I don't think so.
I don't know what he is, but the guy
He had military experience. I know that. I remember him talking about
when we
being in
talk to his co-workers, they have all the majority think that he was not the best cop ever, more like a malingerer, was always on light duty, was not really a team player, and quote one of his co-workers said he's one of those guys that's just collecting a paycheck here. The third guy that spoke was Fanone. Maybe not. Listen, these are all Yankee names. Gano, Fanone. I don't know. But Fanone, we've all seen him. The guy with the tattoo on his neck, Metropolitan PD, the drugs and vice guy, or special teams unit, whatever.
Beautiful beard. Beautiful.
We hear him as well talk. And what is important to know about him is that his father is a judge. And he's always had Time Magazine since the beginning of this thing happened. Time Magazine has been on him with a photographer 24/7. And Time Magazine has been very close to him from the beginning. And that's what a lot of guys say is very weird. And there's also speculation amongst the troops there in the Metropolitan PD that he already has a book deal through Time Magazine. So they do feel like that he's politically motivated. Now, I will say this, that it does not matter. It does not justify what happened to him. Please listen to me here. That does not, and for any three of these guys, it doesn't matter if they were a piece of shits or whatever, nothing justifies what happened to them on that day. And so if you are a mature adult and you listen to these guys on a human level, aside from the politics, nothing justifies what happened to them. Being called the N-word over and over again is not a justified thing just because of his political beliefs. What else I think is interesting here is that Dunn, being the black guy, he's the one that gave out the speech and said that he had never ever been called the N-word before while on duty. I find that somewhat hard to believe. I feel like every cop, especially every black cop, has probably been called the N-word in a major city. I mean, shit, I've been called the N-word as well, and I'm not black at all, but I don't know that that's.
Are you sure about that?
I don't know if I can believe that. It still doesn't justify being called that. I'm not saying that, but I've also heard that that he is very over politicized. Now, his comrades did say that he is a good guy and that they like him. However, he is the only person on the department.
Yeah, that he's a good cop. Yeah,
he's a good cop, but he is the only one on the department that is political. Now, remember at the beginning of the show when I told you Capitol police officers are not allowed to be political.
He's gotten away with it.
He has gotten away with it. There's a picture circulating on the internet where he was flicking off Trump. So that's what we've heard. But he has been outspoken to all of his friends about hating Trump through the whole presidency of Trump and being very outspoken about that, which all of his colleagues say, which is, it's kind of a no-no, but for some reason he has been allowed to do this and we don't know why. So it is kind of leads to reason why they chose him. And then when you hear his statement that day, I like to believe Fanone, and again, this is just from my police perspective, Fanone's statement seemed like it was a report that he had written, which is normal. That's kind of what you do here in a real hearing in a real courthouse. Also, Gano's is kind of like based on a report style writing, getting crushed, getting dragged into the crowd, getting pummeled, having guys say that they're going to pull his gun out and shoot him in the face, which somebody said that this was a unarmed crowd. It doesn't matter if you're an unarmed crowd. If somebody's yelling, pull his gun and shoot him in the face, that becomes an armed crowd to me.
They can become armed.
I like their statements. And I have no problem with their statements. And I believe it. Again, I question why they were given statements. And again, I'd say if you're a really good cop and you're a really good person, you would not involve yourself in this. So if you're really heroic that day and you're really brave in your heart of hearts and your souls of souls, I don't think that you would have gone publicly, no matter what side of the fence it is. At least that's just the way I am, because I'm so worried about being a hand of somebody else's politics. And I'm always questioning even my own beliefs. I'm always questioning. And I don't mind flip-flopping on things as new facts are presented to me, but I don't know that I would ever go in front of a committee like that, knowing very well that they are using you as a political pawn.
They're using that's what
Trump wanted to give me an award for some shit, and I knew in my heart of hearts that this was like being used as a political pawn. I would just say no, because I don't want to be used as a pawn for politics, no matter what politics I believe in.
Yeah,
where I have a problem,
I think has it. But yes, go ahead.
Where I have a problem is with Dunn's testimony. Not saying he's a bad guy or a bad cop, but when you're using the over theatrics, it really it comes across as unprofessional. It comes across as very childish, immature. I did not like his statements very much. Only the fact is it was very vague. It was theatrical. It wasn't written like the other two guys from their perspectives. It was just like they had Trump flags, they had tread on me flags, and I was being called the N-word, and they marched through, and they were saying, and it was just trying to invoke emotions out of you without giving facts. Like, what did they do with these Trump flags? What did they do with these flags? Did they stab you with it? Did they drag you in it? Whereas the other guys, they were very precise. This is where I was at. This is which person said this to me, and this is which person dragged me into the fight and beat the fuck out of me. So I think if they would, I think Dunn's speech was very unprofessional, in my personal opinion. And again, I don't know what it's like in Dunn's defense. I don't know what it's like to sit on a committee floor or be chosen and having to say things like that. Everybody speaks different. Everybody has different, look, I can talk on this podcast very easily, but you put me in a group of college students and I'm a babbling idiot. I'm babbling idiot anyway, but I'm even worse then. So we never know what it's like to be sitting in that courtroom and I, he articulated himself. He showed up. I mean, he gave a very heartwarming story. He definitely evoked some emotions. That's for sure.
I do not disparage them one bit for, they lived through it. They have their experiences. I have no reason to doubt that their experiences are real. They've given me nothing. I do agree with you that, a couple of their testimonies sounded like, hey, I'm giving you the facts just as I reported them in my report. Like, this is exactly the deal. The body cam footage that has been released backs up exactly what they were talking about and describing, which I was happy to see. I'm like, okay, so we're dealing with some factual events that happen and their experiences. That's fine. But again, what angers me, and I know I can see it in the comments too, people are picking up on this, is that the reality is like, why were there not 3 or 4 Minneapolis cops chosen when they lost their precinct and it was being attacked and they had to fall back and give it up by order from leadership? And they spent days away from their family. They had bricks thrown at them. They had injuries, hospitalizations, all this stuff. Why were they not chosen for a hearing? Why was there no hearings about those violent mobs? And that's, again, guys, to go back to the very opening of this whole thing for us, is they want us, and when I say they, I'm talking about politicians at high levels, media ownership, and major business corporations, that trifecta. They have power and position that is driven by finances. They have power and position, and they maintain that by creating the division in us. They love the conspiracy theories. They love spinning this stuff up. They love both the far left communist wackos, and they love the far right crazy QAnon conspiracy theories about JFK traveling back in time to join Trump in triumphal victory and this bullshit nonsense. Like, they love that because that keeps us divided. And so we start devouring each other. They certainly love the fact that we would be cop to cop criticizing each other. when the real issue that seems to be unfolding in front of me is like, oh, this is really obvious. This is really obvious. They are using these cops because it fits their current political persuasion and position,
And
instead of talking about all of them.
Just the same reason why they did not enact the National Guard to begin with, because it fit their narrative at the time. So if they really cared about preservation of life, if they really cared about, if they really cared about security, they would not have been concerned with perception. So I think
Yes.
starting from the top, this whole thing, if you want to put blame on anybody, which is really sad because I'm not saying Sons was a good chief or not. I don't know who he was as a person. I didn't work for him. So I'm not going to speak on his leadership there. A lot of his coworkers that we were able to speak with weren't huge fans of him. However, they agreed that the National Guard was needed, and they felt betrayed by this sergeant of arms. Now, the sergeant of arms resigned forcefully. We all know what forcefully resigned is, right? So it's like you're choosing to resign before you get fired. Something Cuomo should probably fucking take note of. And that's not a political statement. That's, I don't like fucking pieces of shit. And like that guy has gotten away with literally murder. He should have been gone a long time ago. Anyway, that was a digression. But the sergeant at arms was, he resigned forcefully. The chief resigned. Now the deputy chief, who is in charge of intel, I have been told by many sources, did absolutely nothing that day, did not even give intel that day, and then became kind of like intern chief until they selected a new chief, which is pretty scary there. Now, but the people who were overall in charge was not the sergeant of arms, was not the chief of the Capitol Police, but Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. So politics aside, these two fucking dudes, chicken guy, they fucking told the sergeant of arms, we're not putting in the National Guard, baby, because the optics look bad, because the perception looks bad, and because Trump did it. We're not going to do it. So if anybody wants to be mad at anybody for this insurrection, this riot, whatever it is that you want to call it, it has to be on Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, because if we're going to do the extreme ownership thing, which I completely believe in, the extreme ownership has to go on Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, because they are the ones who are in charge after the sergeant at arms. They are the next chain of command there. They are the highest chain of command at that level. And they said no National Guard.
Yeah.
If you would have had the National Guard there, this would not have happened.
And
It would
then
have happened differently.
then you've got the police for me, but not for thee group, where why are the Capitol Police getting this attention from politicians? Well, I mean, because it impacts them directly. It happened to them. It happened at their house, which is our house. And let me because we got to wrap up, but I want to, guys, and feel free to, when this episode is released and you hear it, hey, go to our Instagram, Failure to Stop, comment, send the messages. That's fine. Cool. Interact with us on YouTube where you see this video. Go to the YouTube video, comment, man, and interact. But one of the things that, shoot, man, I totally spaced.
Oh, well, you were saying that we have to wrap this up, but you're talking about narratives and like,
Oh my gosh.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I didn't have enough coffee. I literally totally spaced. I had like a point.
You had a Biden moment. You had a Biden moment.
I had a Biden
The next time you fucking make
fun
of Biden, just remember right now.
I can't ever make fun of it for his cognitive disability. I was thinking of a t-shirt. This is the problem. I'm not kidding you. I was talking, and then a t-shirt that said Cuomophobia came across my brain, and I lost my train of thought entirely.
So somebody got Drinking Bros, which is who employs us, and that's who we work for. Which is awesome because they allow us to say whatever the fuck we want. So we love Drinking Bros. Make sure you go over and follow Drinking Bros, which has my favorite podcast of all time. But they actually got a cease and desist for making shirts that said Cuomosexual.
Cuomophobia. I don't know.
It's like our only body cams, which is that shirt's going to get taken down, I'm sure, because OnlyFans is going to make us get rid of that.
We'll see.
Go ahead and buy that shirt up.
Somebody did mention police for thee, not for me, right? Police for me, not for thee. That's it. That's what I was talking about. Thank you so much, guys. This is why a live show is great. All right. So the issue here is this happened to them. So now it matters. When these riots were happening elsewhere and not directly impacting their lives, where their police department that protects them day in and day out happens, well, then their value is different. Real quick, I want to play this clip because this is the sentiment that I feel like happens, and this is from what's her freaking name, Representative Cori Bush. Yeah. What does she have to say? Can you play that for us, Andy?
We're also talking about the same exact people who say horrible things about me, who lie to get to build up their base, and then because they lie about me, I receive death threats. Now, they don't address the fact that I receive death threats after they go on air and say horrible things about me, but then they want to say, oh, but she needs private security. I have private security because my body is worth being on this planet right now.
So, guys, you listen to what that there's your politicians for you. Her body is worth being here, not other people. We need to, because she goes on to all of these people in the Congress and politicians around the country defund the police. They don't want their police defunded. They don't want their protection defunded. And this is why the Capitol Police are given hearings and nobody else is, because it impacted them. It impacts them. So now they want to talk about it. And this whole idea that there's an implicit sentiment in what she's saying. My body, I'm worth it. Other people aren't worth it. We should defund the police because there's other people out there who aren't worth their protection. But they are.
And to close that out on that note, I know the big question here, and it started at the beginning of the comments, was what about the 5 suicides? When you defund the police in Metropolitan PD, and you saw that their chief got up and gave that beautiful speech about the murder rate, the homicide rate.
Yeah.
Violent crime is way up. The murder rate is way up. A police officer has to deal with a lot of really egregious things. Babies being thrown up into a ceiling fan to get its head to knock off because somebody was so high on drugs that they wanted to see if it could possibly happen. And then that officer has to go home and live with that for a very long time and dwell on that. And then he has to go to a riot, and then he has to go, then he has to deal with turning on the news and to defund this and defund that. And it's very easy for a cop right now to slip into a very dark place. And so let's never, ever, ever discredit these suicides. Let's not be so generic to chalk this up into some kind of conspiracy theory for your own political beliefs or to make it your own political, to fit your political narrative or anybody's or the government's or any of this bullshit. Don't forget that these men have probably served very selflessly, just as Mike probably served, or Mike did serve faithfully and selflessly. These men have to, and they are human beings. And I'm not sure that it's the January 6th. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but it is the compounding of an increase in violent crime, an increase of murder, an increase of hostility, an increase in news bashing of the police. It's this narrative that nobody likes you anymore. Right now, it is a pandemic amongst police officers. And when one person does it, it makes it easier for the next, and then it makes it easier for the next and the next and the next. And that's why we're seeing 4 and 5 officers from departments killing themselves. And we need to be looking out for our brothers and our sisters. We don't need to be judging them right now. If you are hurting, if you feel lost, if the news has trapped you, you've been there for other people. Let us be there for you. Reach out to us on Instagram, reach out to us on Facebook, reach out to somebody, man. And if you're in these comments and you say you support police, I love how Dan Holloway says, it's not see something, say something. It's see something, fucking do something. You're seeing this right now. Pick up your phone right now and call that one buddy that you have that might be going through some shit, and take them to coffee, take them to pizza. It doesn't have to be a woo-saw like a fucking kumbaya, but like just call and be like, yo, bud, let's go grab some pizza real quick, man. And have a chat, because I don't want any more of these officers killing themselves, and I don't want it being politicized, and I don't want you guys all talking about it and trying to come up with conspiracies and things. Let's just
I don't think like, then what it was kind of heartbreaking, quite honestly, to see people saying alleged suicides. Why in the wake of these hearings are these alleged suicides? These guys were probably Epstein or this was like, hold on a second, man. Again, the media choosing, this fires me up, man, because people tend to do one of two things, and the politicians love it. They tend to do this: just because I've seen something means that's the norm, or just because I haven't seen something on the internet or the media doesn't mean it does. It means it doesn't happen. So, oh, look at all these suicides happening. Guys, you need to open your eyes. More officers commit suicide every single year by 2 times than who are killed in the line of duty. That happens all the time. Stop. Hold on a second. Don't be dragging 4 officers who have committed suicide recently into your conspiracy theory. Stop it. Because
Or into
this
your
is
politics.
This is the prevalent. Yeah. Or your politics.
And that
This
goes
is
to
the
politicians.
prevalent problem.
Like, don't let the politicians, and that's
Yes.
the other disgusting
Yes.
thing, is that these politicians are like, the January 6th insurrection caused them to kill themselves. That is talking about them for your political narrative.
Yes.
Your political game. That's disgusting.
Preach. Yes, that's so true. So guys, you want to do something about it? Also, callforbackup.org is a totally free resource to reach out to if you need someone to talk to and do not feel comfortable going up your chain of command. Callforbackup.org. You can check them out. You can reach out. They also provide free training around the country digitally, like virtually and in person, for stress resilience and suicide prevention, crisis response. So that's my go-to recommended resource for those that are struggling for any of that. So check them out.
Yep. To close it up, guys, man, this was a hard one for us. I promise you, we didn't have a narrative. We didn't have an agenda here today. We just wanted to break this down on the basis. We weren't here to piss anybody off.
Hopefully in a way that brings it around to support cops.
Yeah. And if anything, we just kind of wanted to give this to you on a police perspective, and we hope you enjoyed the show. And look, we love feedback. Please don't look at this as us trying to come down on anybody or condemn anybody or shit on you in the comments. We literally want to learn from you guys. Reach out to us, send us your messages, let us know your opinions, but come at it with an open mind. And let's see if we can have some real discourse together. Next week's episode is going to be a lot of fun. It won't be as serious. And
we're gonna we tend to try to pendulum, right? Like back at like we'll take something serious, but next week, guys, we're gonna just we'll have angry cops with us next week, and we're gonna have just a fun time talking about military and police training and tactics and smoking and joking. You know, if you watch angry cop stuff, you'll know like he's a hoot for.
We got great new sponsors coming out next week too. And we're going to be wearing our freaking failure to stop shirts, the GoFund Police, only body cams, critical police theory. These shirts, the coffee mugs that are coming out next week are even more dope.
Yeah, buddy.
Because I designed 2 of them myself. But guys, support us, support everything.
Failure to stop.com,
baby.
All right, guns up, giddy up. We won't stop. Homophobia.
Homosexual.